Welcome to my Best 11 podcast. Today we are joined by the second most powerful man, according to Billboard, in the music industry, CEO of Sony Music Entertainment, but most importantly, or second most important, sorry, director of Luton Town, but most importantly, according to Marvin, he was born in Aylesbury. Today, we are joined by Rob Stringer, CBE. How are you, Rob?
All right, chaps. Not bad, thank you.
Was that the right order? Was that the right order?
7 a.m. in the morning here. You've woke me up. Marvin's all perky and cheerful, and I'm half asleep, but nice to see you both.
Let's just make sure that everyone understands. Rob and I are on the same time frame, and yes, Rob is a little bit like, but I'm up. I was up at 6.
Yeah, I know. You're such a Tigger, and I'm more like Eeyore at this time in the morning. So it's perfect. Perfect for you, Marv, as long as you're happy.
Marvin, Aylesbury.
Yes.
For both of you, really, for the foreign listeners, tell us your memories, or tell us a bit about Aylesbury. I mean, did you two get up to mischief? Because when I said that right at the end, most importantly, both of your faces lit up. It was absolutely brilliant.
Well, I don't know if Rob remembered. I mean, I could, because Rob always says about my memory being not the best, but I remember playing, I think it was Walsall away, and after the game, I think we got beat, and Rob sort of like came up to me and introduced himself and said, "Hey, I'm a director of Luton Town, but we've got something else in common." And I said, "What's that?" And he said, "I believe you grew up in Aylesbury." He said, "I did as well." Is that right, Rob? Do you think? Was that?
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember what game it was, Marv. You got an unbelievable memory.
Okay,
we probably lost as well. In fact, I think we did lose at that game. Yeah, I mean, I think I played for Bedgrove Dynamos.
That's right, Bedgrove.
And the reason I support Luton is because the bloke who used to be our coach, he was a great bloke called Steve Carter. He was the manager of Bedgrove Dynamos under 12s, and he took us all to Luton. And you played for Stoplake, didn't you, Marv? Is that right?
No, Bearbrook Rangers.
Yeah, Bearbrook Rangers. Well, I played for Bedgrove Dynamos for about 5 years, right. And in the Aylesbury League. Massive league, actually. Look at all the professional football players. Actually, there was a professional football player who did play for Stoplake who used to play against us. You probably remember, Marv, was Charlie Palmer. Do you remember him?
Yeah, he went to that yellow team, didn't he?
Yeah. He went to Watford. He played for Notts County, I think. But he played the same time as I played. But it was
did he?
Yeah, and it wasn't a sort of huge buzz in town, Andrew, but it was like, I lived on Bedgrove, and I lived there until I was like 20, I think, something like that.
Awesome. So two local lads, and being born from Luton myself, and now look how far we spread. Look how far we've come. But we're here to talk about your passion for Luton and the best Luton team you have ever seen with your eyes. Now, whenever we have fans on, we leave it entirely open to interpretation. So how have you interpreted, or for the guests at home, or in the car, or wherever they are, how have you interpreted, or how are you going about this with Luton?
Well, actually, I'd like to say that I could say I thought it was going to be harder than it was, and then I got my Roger Wash book out there to go over a bit of facts and figures, because I'm a bit of a train spotter, and then actually it sort of panned out okay. Although I think I'm playing an extremely sort of Pleat-esque attacking team, so we're probably going to win games like 8-4 or something like that. So it's a bit over attack, this team, because there was a couple of players who didn't want to leave out. So if I'm allowed a sub, I think if we were like 7-4 up halfway through the second half, I think I'd need to bring on a defensive midfield player, because it's a very attacking team. But then again, Luton were always attacking teams, in the late 80s, early 90s, particularly in the late 70s, early 80s, we were a very attacking team, so I think it befits the era, really.
Excellent. So we're going from early 70s all the way through to today. Is that correct?
Yeah, ish.
Well, we'll find out. That's a ballpark for everyone.
Okay,
that's the most important thing. Now, you're going to go through a number of these. You said that a number of the players and things like that. Is there any other rules you put in place? I know Simon Pitts had a certain number of games, or you had to. I know you had to see them with your own two eyes, or what the rules as well you put into there.
Well, no, listen, I'm old. I mean, I just turned 60, so I've seen all these players play. I mean, it's like I've supported Luton since '73. So.
And have you got your best team or fondest team in your heart or your head?
I think this is the best team. As I said, with a bit of a stretch on defensive duties in midfield, so to be an attacking team. But I think this is the best team. I mean, I've got, I worked out backups, and yeah, for the most part, I didn't have somebody who'd only played like 15 games or something because I didn't think that should count really. But this team has played a ton of games for Luton, so I think it befits the criteria. Hopefully,
fantastic. Well, we'll jump straight in. So formation, you said attacking. Are we going 1-1-8 or what are we going?
We're going 4-3-3. That's what we're going.
4-3-3. Excellent. We'll jump straight in.
Just by the way, someone did tell me that an American owner of a football club was talking about going 4-4-3 until it was pointed out that was actually playing 12. So that's quite good. So I think that's the new people in charge of football clubs. It's like asking about a 4-4-3 formation. I was like, can't do that. 12 people, that would be unfair.
Or you're playing rush goalie.
Or you're playing, yeah, exactly. You're that good. You're playing rush goalie. Brilliant.
Excellent. So goalkeeper, while we're on goalie, let's go for goalies. Now, clues as you go, please, Rob, for our listeners.
Okay. Well, I don't think you wouldn't have played with him, Marv, because it was a little bit before your time. But and I'll give you an easy clue to start. He's Scottish.
Right.
You got that?
Yeah.
Yep. Do you want to give another clue for people who don't know at home? Because both of us have got it. But
yeah, he advertised. There's a brilliant advert for him advertising, I think, plywood bedrooms in the late 70s when he was at Luton. It's a brilliant advert of him and his wife with a sort of bedroom unit made, one of those plywood bedroom units they have to have in the 70s. He's advertising that in the Luton programme, I think. It's a brilliant advert.
That would be great if you could find a copy of that. That would be immense.
Brilliant. It's him and his wife in a suit sort of being shown around. I think we used to be sponsored by someone who used to build sort of bedroom and shelving units and stuff. But that's who's in goal.
And with the greatest respect to him, they picked him.
Yeah,
it's quite a random player.
He was a good looking lad. No, he was a good looking boy, and it was one of those. It looked like a mid-70s that's for sure. So it's like that's who he's in goal. Played about. I think he got injured, but he played easily 160, 170 games for us, I think. So
yeah, we're talking Jake Finley.
Mr. Jake Finley.
We are, yeah. It's an interesting thing with goalkeepers. I was doing my train spotting. I mean, we've had a lot of goalkeepers, and Marv would probably back this up. We've had a lot of goalkeepers who were good for about a season and a half, but not that many who played a lot, past a certain era. I mean, obviously, I think Jake Finley got injured and Les Seeley replaced him. And Les Seeley played a couple of 100 times, and then there's Kelvin but there's a lot of goalkeepers who had like a season and a bit. I mean, like Ian Foyer for one season was brilliant, but I'm not sure it's consistent, was he, Marv?
Same with Jurgen.
Same with Jurgen.
Yeah.
I thought, Marlon Beresford was very good in the promotion seasons that Marvin, that was around for. But I think Jake Finley was a really, really solid, chunky, solid goalkeeper, and again, it was in front of a team that was very exciting.
Yeah, no, definitely. So you'd have seen a bit of Jake Finley when you went down to the town. One of the main questions I wanted to ask you is, where do you prefer to sit? I mean, if you weren't a director, and obviously sitting mostly up in the director's box, or do you not sit in the director's box? Where is your favourite part of the ground and why?
Oh, when I was a kid, I used to go. It was 30p in the Oak Road, so I used to stand in the Oak Road. That got a bit hairy. We were in the top leagues because all the the fans from London used to come and climb over. You have to climb over the fence and be on the pitch. So after that, I used to sit for a long period when I first got to know Marvin. I used to sit on the sort of main stand terraces just in front of the dugout, and with a bunch of lads from, I think some of them still go. There's a couple of guys I still see who, in fact, one of the directors, Bob, used to sit there as well, and used to sit on that terrace and give stick to the bench. Most of the time their bench, occasionally our bench during a sort of tough period. But that's where I used to sit on the main stand terrace, right at sort of the halfway line. Great view from there.
You forget that the benches used to be that. I keep
on the opposite side, yeah.
On the opposite side. I remember Lenny once coming across, and I sat in that same area as a kind of teenager, and I remember having to bring out the tunnel thing when Lenny was going in because he was getting absolutely, literally pelted.
I think it was Lenny who moved them. I think it was Lenny who moved the benches on the opposite side.
I had nothing to do with that, but it was. But I had nothing to do with that stick. But I think it was. But I think it was Lenny's era. They moved it to the other side because he was getting a load of grief. I can remember Joe Kinnear being a Wimbledon manager, and we were giving him stick, and he just turned around and went, "Loads of money, loads of money." You know, it's like that was when we were playing Wimbledon, when they were obviously a really good team then. But it was, but no, it was a great place to sit. Those plastic seats were cold in the winter to sit on those pale orange plastic seats. But it was a great place to watch the game.
Fantastic. Where do you sit, Marv, when you go back? Do you go, obviously not just in the director's box, but do you where did you like to sit and watch the games?
I used to, when I finished playing, didn't I, Rob? Because Rob had a box, and so I used to go sit with Rob and some other family members, or with some friends he invited in, and so that was really, really like quite interesting because I mean you got such a great view. I mean from those boxes, but that was a long time ago. I mean, wasn't it?
And you have to behave. You have to behave, don't you? Yeah. Would you not have to behave, Rob? And from what you said so far, that isn't one of your preferences at a football game.
Rob wouldn't get you.
The Luton board are all very partisan, so that's a good thing. It's a really nice thing. You know, we're all proper fans, all of us. So you know, it's still jolly when we score. Box 11, one of the players I'm going to pick did once tell me that he could hear me giving him stick all through the game from box 11 because of course you're on right on the pitch there. But that was fun watching him in that. But those boxes are great to watch the game from. They're a fun view. But I had that for about I think 7 or 8 seasons, box 11. So there was a Marvin Johnson frame shirt hanging in box 11, Andrew.
Oh, is there? Is it still there?
I think I took it. I don't know where it is. And it's like
jumble sale.
I think it goes to jumble sale. I think it might be in my house in England somewhere. But it's no. But that was a great view there. And as I said, we'll come on to one of the players who played when I was in box 11 actually. So
excellent. So we'll move on to defence. Left back, right back. Whichever.
By the way, Marv, Jules is feeding the dogs really quietly in the background, so that
super Jules.
My wife is feeding the dogs, Andrew, in the background. So pinch and punch, first day of the month. There you go.
Right.
She's trying to be quiet, feeding the dogs, so that this podcast is incredibly professional, Andrew. Yeah.
She hasn't heard them then, so clearly.
No, exactly.
knows Marvin too well. She really knows what the standard will be like, trust me.
So, defenders, left back, right back.
Okay, well, let's start with right back. Again, same era, just a real character, pretty similar perm to Jake Finley, actually. I think that's a good enough clue.
Basher.
Yeah. I mean, Kirk Stevens was just what a strong player and what a character. I mean, still see him in Goes to Games now. He's just a really funny guy. And as you know, he scored the last minute goal at Watford in 1979 when we hadn't played Watford for, I'm sure other people have brought that up. I mean, we hadn't played Watford for whatever it was, 20 years, and he scored that goal. And I was there in the away end, and it was pandemonium. I mean, 29, I think, a lot of 20,000 at the game or whatever. It was just fantastic. I mean, and he was a really good player. And also in a Watford home game, he elbowed. I was standing right where he was, and he basically knocked a Watford player out when the referee didn't see. There was no VAR in those days.
He spoke about that, didn't he, Andrew, when he was on? Because I think that's a little bit like to do with Mitchell, was it something? Was it Mitchell? I think someone was
Someone was getting someone was getting at.
Yeah.
I think it was at Mitchell, and he was sticking up for him.
Yeah, because Mitchell was a young kid, and he was saying that was a little bit out of order. So you saw that, Rob?
Yeah. So I was right by it. I remember it, and I mean, as you said, Marv, you know, it's not hard to get him to tell you the story about the Watford goal, but he's what a character and really good, you know, really strong player. And again, you know, as I said, a blonde curly perm. It was a bit of a thing, you know, and him and Jake Finley, you could get them muddled up, you know. So, but you know, he was, and I, you know, there's obviously we've had good right back. Tim Breaker was a really good right back, Marvy. He was really good, you know. But
I mean, when you gave the clue, I mean, I thought Justin, I thought that could have been the one who was in the. I mean, I'm in the last 20 years. I thought he's been. Like he's come for the ranks, and I thought that's the one you're going to pick. So
yeah, and fun enough, I also because he sort of played.
I'd have him as left.
Yeah, he played left more than
Luton. It was more
right,
left,
really. Yeah, because Jack Stacey was right, and again, Jack. I mean, Jack was Jack was a great player, but the only reason I haven't got Jack in because obviously, you know, Jack was playing in League One, you know, as opposed to the Championship or the Prep or the old Division One. You know, it's like so. So that was the reason I picked him. But I mean, just for that Watford goal alone, you know, you scored against Watford as well, though, Marv. So you know, yes, exactly. So I was there for that game. We drew 1-1 that game, didn't we? So
1-1, yes, it was 1-1.
Yeah. So no, Kirk gets the right back spot.
Kirk's in right back. So left back, who is in there?
Okay, so this is my nod to the more recent times. I mean, I'll go. This was hard. I mean, Steve Buckley in the 70s was a pile driver. What a player he was, and he could hit a ball like rocket, and he was really, really good. But and then again, it was a toss up here between two more modern players. James Justin was fantastic again, League One though. So I went for Matt Taylor.
You're not going to let us guess then. Oh, cheers, Rob.
Sorry, Marvy. Actually, you sorry. Okay, I'm not going to say Matt Taylor then, Marvin. I'll stick someone else again.
Yes. And that was the one. I thought I was going to guess that one as well.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, he was on my side when I was in the box, and I did give him. He did say that he remembers me shouting like calling him a wanker or something, which is I feel terrible about. He was such a good player, Marv, wasn't he? It's like so
really good, really good player.
Yeah, and young and could score a goal and could get, you know, was really like a modern wing back. And obviously
had to carry John Louis as well. Had to do John Louis' defensive work because nobody was tracking back on that left.
That's right. He played on the same side, and obviously, you know, he was. I mean, he went on to he played. He's played hundreds of league games, isn't it? Like 500-600 or something. But he was, but he was a flair player, but also fullback. And it was fun watching him, especially he was on that side, tearing up and down. He's an exciting player. So you know, I mean, you know, it was what fine line between him and James Justin, but Matt Taylor played. I mean, he played well over 100 games for us as well, I think. So
easily
scored a few goals as well, Marv. You know, so
and did well considering he came down. He got relegated with Luton as well as then obviously when we bounced back up with Kinnear.
I think he got his chance because of that, Andrew. In fairness, you know, it's like he got his chance because we did go down. You know, so because he was young. I mean, he was like I think he was 18 when he started playing for Bristol, wasn't he? Something like that. So
and he spoke on this pod when we had him on here. He openly spoke about how he was booted from Oxford.
That's right. He was a goalkeeper, I think, or something.
Goalkeeper.
Yes, and they kicked him out because they said he was too overweight.
Yeah. I know.
Yeah. No, I mean, and a dead nice lad as well. Really nice.
Very nice lad.
Yeah.
Awesome. So left back is Matty Taylor. Centre backs.
It's too easy, this. And even with Marv on the podcast, Andrew, it's too easy, this. I'm sorry. It's just too easy. I've got Marv in the squad. You know, but he was.
Listen, I couldn't have made your team. I mean, that would have been a years. Huh?
I've got mid-period Marv in my squad. Mid-period, not late period because he was a bit injured, but mid-period Marv.
About 97, 96 when he's around that Ipswich winner. That Ipswich winner in the
Ipswich winner was there on the plastic bucket seats for the Ipswich winger, the Ipswich winner. That was amazing. But the you know, another perm for the first centre half, another perm, but great.
Was the perm managed by a band, or we gone the other one?
Was the perm managed by a band?
By a white headband, like a tennis headband.
I thought you back to the music business. I thought managed by a band. It was managed by managed by Slade. I thought what it was like what?
Fozzie,
yeah. I mean, you've got to have him in it because he was the captain of the, you know, one of the greatest days of my life, and you know, he was really a. I mean, you know, as you know, I'm sure lots of people have said on this podcast before, you know, that's when we had players who were internationals. You know, it's like England internationals, and you know, Fozzie was amazing. I mean, just that era was amazing. I mean, so he has to be in it. I mean, the backup on that side, I had. I thought Paul Elliott was a great player. I mean, you know, he didn't play, you know, because he went quite quick Charlton to us and then went upward, but he was a really good player, Marv. And then and Curtis Davis, who you sort of nurtured. I mean, Curtis Davis was in that season and a bit for us. He was amazing, you know, but it has to be Foster because of the history, you know.
Yeah. Have you ever spoken to him much about those days? And
no, I mean, some of you know, obviously as we go through, there's a couple of members of the team I have a lot. But you know, I've never really spent much time with Steve Foster because I think he's, you know, he doesn't really come. I mean, you know him really well, Marvy. I mean, it's like I'm sure he's a great lad bloke, but I don't really, you know, I've never really spent much time with him. I've always just been a fan, which is good sometimes, you know.
Yeah,
he's a very quiet man, which is surprising. I mean, and very reserved and like not out there sort of thing, a personality. No. So I mean, a very big, great leader, and as a man. But like once, I mean, you go behind, and it's like off the scenes. He's like, even when I talk to him every now and then here, it's like he's just very softly spoken, and it's just Fozzie. I mean, he is a great man.
Yeah, fantastic. Pop us the book back in, Rob. That you used as your Bible or your go-to?
Well, I mean, Roger Wash is like the Luton club, you know, and I know we've got Simon Stato Pitts, who's a great chap as well. He does the commentary, but Roger does all the stuff in the program. And when I see him most games, because he sits quite near the director's box, he's a good guy. And I sort of helped out a little bit with Hatters Heritage, which they're involved with, you know, which is a really good thing because he's documenting the past so that future generations can know all that stuff. And he's a really, really nice chap, and obviously knows ton, and has written 3 or 4 books about Luton as well. I mean, he knows tons about Luton. So I did have to, just to check that I wasn't missing anybody out. I did look at that book for a bit, you know, just to make sure that I hadn't forgotten somebody, but I don't think I did. So
the reason I was asking was I'm intrigued. Obviously, the industry you're in music industry. Which artist or person you work with is the one that's the weirdest one you didn't think would have heard of Luton but have?
Oh, I mean, it's weird now. I mean, most people know. It's very strange now. Most people know I support Luton. You know, I mean, so. But
are there any kind of big stars that go, "Oh yeah, Luton, I've heard of them." Yeah,
I think the biggest thing was when David Bowie wrote a thing about me and he put Luton in it, and it was really made me. I mean, first of all, you know, to work with him was like, it's just. People say you shouldn't meet your heroes, but he was just amazing. And he wrote for some award thing I got, and he wrote a tribute thing, and he put Luton in it, and it was just funny as fuck. I mean, it's like, and you're just going, oh my God, you know, think, you know, that was around 2000, maybe 2011, 2012. No, maybe a little bit later than that. But he put that thing in Luton in a reference, and it's like, wow, you know, because, you know, I have a reference point with David Bowie I mean, Marvin was a bit young for this, but because of Aylesbury, because David Bowie is so closely associated with Aylesbury, that to have your life come full circle and have David Bowie reference Luton in terms of that, when you were growing up in Aylesbury, David Bowie was like a figurehead for everything that was great about music. So that's hard to beat that, really. You know, in my generation, you know, I was just about young enough to remember the Beatles when I was really little on the radio. But for my generation, David Bowie was the trailblazer. You know, so to have David Bowie reference Luton is a bit odd and, you know, great. So.
Fantastic. Do you leave that book around the place just to see who picks up on it? Or leave?
I remember. Do you know what? I remember the quote. I mean, it's like it got read out to me. You know, when I was on. Actually, it was late in that. It was in the 2000 teens, but it was read out to me, and I was like, oh my god, I should just retire now. Just stop after that. You
know. Excellent. Do you get over to Luton much to watch the games?
Yeah, no,
all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, Marv pretends it's like still like 1912, Andrew, and you have to get like the Titanic to come back to England. But yeah, I mean, they're like, you know, from New York, you know, planes are like buses. There's a lot of 7 flights a day. So I come back quite a lot. I mean, I try and come back when I can do a 3-game week. So Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday, or Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday. But, you know, if there's key games, I'll fly back just for a day. I mean, you know, I was back for the playoff games against Huddersfield home and away, and I came back and I was there for the last game of the season against Reading when we had to. So yeah, I mean, I'm used to it. I mean, it's not bad from New York. It's, you know, to get to London, it's only, as you know, it's only 6 hours. So it's not Australia, that's for sure, Andrew. You know, it's like it's easy to get. Although Stephen Brown, our director, is in Australia quite a lot, and he comes back quite a lot to see Luton. So I mean, I'm more excited than ever. I mean, you know, it's not less. I used to be very excited when I was 11 years old, and I'm no less, as Marvin knows, I'm no less excited now to go to a game than when I was. In fact, it's the same. You sort of dip a bit sometimes in your life when you're in your 20s and you're running around, or you might have a hangover or something. But I'm as excited to go now as when I was a kid. You know, it's so yeah. I go quite. I mean, I'm due back, I think, in the beginning of October. Then I'll go at the end of October, and I'll be back for Christmas and see probably 3 games at Christmas. So
yeah. So do you put you know that when Luton send out the email and says sync calendar, you put that in, and the PA works around the meetings?
You know, I'm on it trying to work out.
Definitely,
I'm on it trying to work out combos. I mean, I'm absolutely trying to work out when I can justify being in England, and then I'm looking to see if someone's playing somewhere in London, and I can, you know, justify being in England at that time period. And it was actually we're bringing everybody in from around the world in 3 weeks, because we haven't had to put everybody together in the same place for 3 years because of the pandemic. And there's 2 home games on that Saturday and Tuesday. And I mean,
there's a shame. And what day's the meeting on? 3 o'clock on the Saturday, yeah?
Oh, well, no, and I'm going to have the game on my phone when I'm talking nonsense to people. Yeah, on the Tuesday. Yeah, so yeah,
brilliant. So we get back to football. Fozzie and Northern Irishman.
The other, yeah. I mean, again, you know, a bit of a perm at some point. Everybody had perms in that era. Marvin had a sort of perm.
I did.
You did a massive afro perm. And he had a perm at one point. But again, I guess Marvin, another quiet one. I mean, Mal Donaghy was, you know, I mean, he was an incredible player. I mean, you look at, I mean, obviously, you guys know, loads of people, I'm sure, with Mal, but look at the number of games he played as well. Another one who's like 600 games, and he was fantastic. I mean, fantastic player, and obviously a great player with Steve. You know, played longer than Steve for us, but he was an amazing player. What a career he had.
Well, yeah, and then to play for the clubs he played for as well. I know
Chelsea,
we all love Luton here, but to also play for United
and Chelsea,
yeah,
it's just it's incredible.
I've got my backup as Marvy here, you know, just said squad player, I
actually broke into the team originally because of. I mean, I look back now in my career. I mean, like you said, Fozzie, unbelievable leader and captain and the player. Mal, Northern Ireland international and Mr. Consistent. I mean, when he obviously left to go to Manchester United, it was like, well, Ray Artford, God bless him, said, look, I'm not going to go out and purchase someone. I'm going to give you the opportunity. And then at the time, I mean, very grateful, but it was the first division, which is now the English Premier League. It was for an 18 or 19-year-old to to come up and hold a place down, it was like very difficult for me. And I mean, I'm very grateful for the career I had at Luton, but I look back now and think it was impossible for me to be like, to come into that team and be able to establish myself as a player for forevermore. So, I mean, I'm very grateful to
who mentored you in that defence then, Marv? Who was your mentor when you were 18 years old at the club?
I mean, I think it was Fozzie. I mean, Fozzie was the one. I mean, I gravitate to Fozzie because like he was a very, very good footballer, and that not everyone saw that. You know what I mean? Technically, he was like really, really good, but he just did the simple things. He didn't like dribble. I mean, all the things that I did, take risks. You know, he didn't do that, Fozzie. You know, he'll head it, like get himself into position. I mean, wasn't overly like blessed with a lot of pace, but wasn't slow. I mean, always got himself in the correct positions, and you know, you don't go to play for England in the World Cup. No, if you're like not a very top player, and he was a top player. So I used to watch Fozzie week in, week out growing up when we had to have our youth team games on a Saturday, and then get back for the games and just watch him and just see how he used to position himself, organise. And so yeah, it was Fozzie probably who was the mentor for me. You
said then earlier, sorry, in the kind of statement before about coming through as an 18, 19-year-old, Ray Harford said, we're going to chuck you in, we're going to give you a go. In that era, or maybe nowadays as well, is there a particular position where you think that's easier or harder? Do you think being thrown in at centre-back is the most difficult position? Do you understand what I mean? Is it the most toughest position to break in and sustain it?
If you speak to a centre forward, Mick says there's a lot. I mean, it's the hardest position in the field. I mean, because you're playing with your back to goal, which he's probably right. Because as a centre back,
but is it hard to break through as an 18-year-old and keep your position? Because I would logically say goalkeeper at that age is probably the hardest.
Yeah, really hard.
Yeah. Because if you make a mistake, more than often it ends up in the back of the net, doesn't it? So
yeah. But was it hard as a centre back compared to your mates around? I mean, you've spoken about other people coming through in your kind of group, and they were in different positions.
I mean, I wasn't. What's the word? I wasn't I didn't lack confidence. So, and I made many mistakes. So it didn't bother me. I mean, I would always try to be the best I could be. If I made a mistake, it wouldn't be a case of how that would dwell on my head. So, I think, in answer to your question, for me, no. I don't think it was difficult because I don't think I would have had the career I had. I mean, I could have been maybe like 6 or 7 games Marvin tried out, but now it's got to me a little bit. That's a little bit too much for me. And now I've just gone down the leagues or gone out of the game. But I mean, to get to play like 400 games for Luton, I must have been doing some things right sometimes wrong with all those managers coming in, you know. So they all come.
You became a leader, and you were a very front foot centre. In fact, you were quite a modern centre back compared to how people play now. Actually, do you know what I mean? It's like you weren't just get it or hoof it or elbow somebody and get it. I mean, you actually played it out, and actually that's how centre backs play now. No,
did the back pass rule changing help you, Marv? Because it kind of made you kind of run. You didn't have that default, did you anymore?
I think he was on one leg.
Did they bring a rule in? Did they?
What, where you weren't allowed to kick the ball back to the keeper? Sorry. Okay. Yeah. All right.
I think he was on one leg by the time the back pass came, Andrew. He wasn't stringing 10 games together in that era. You know, it's like
no, I wasn't. I was coming on for John Louis, and like when Joe got a little bit pissed off with John Louis not like picking up, he used to like push me back to left back and push Matthew Taylor up to left midfield, and then see the games out.
So you played there for the whole of winter then? Because we didn't see John Louis between the 1st of November and the 31st of February, did we? Whoever it was.
Has anybody picked him in the teams? Has anybody picked John Louis?
Yeah, a few have. But
yeah.
Who? Oh, have they?
Yeah, I think way back right at the start, a couple of people did. Just because they were absolute. He was an absolute gun player.
Yeah. It wasn't 50 games though, was it? It was about 15 when he was amazing.
I'd say the first 3.
Oh, I saw the first 3. He was amazing, the first 3. Yeah, I mean, unbelievable. I mean, Orient away and, you know, Torquay at home. The brilliant thing about the Torquay at home game is that as Kev Dearden, who's our goalkeeper, as everybody knows, his goalkeeper, got a great bloke. We're all sitting around an away game at the hotel, Players Hotel, and we're talking about that game, and then Kevin Dearden was in goal for Torquay in that game. I mean, when John Louis that it was like, obviously he scored 2 in 2 successive home games and scored a great goal away at Orient as well in the middle. But Kev Dearden was in goal when we won 5-1. Right. I think Carl Griffiths got a hat trick, I think, maybe in that game. But,
he did.
But Valois scored that goal against Kev Dearden, which is just brilliant. It's like, yeah.
Did he give that information himself, or did somebody cotton on to
it's
it?
like, it's just brilliant information. There's comic gold, that was, So, and Kev's great, but to be in goal that game, I mean that he would have ended up in the back of the Kenilworth Road stand with the ball if he tried to stop that.
Yes, fantastic. Well, we've gone through goalkeepers and defence.
Yeah.
What we're going to do is we're going to pause it here for a short ad break. And then when we come back, we will hear the rest of Rob Stringer's My Best 11. Welcome back to the second part of My Best 11 podcast with Rob Stringer. So far, Jake Finley, Kirk Stevens, Maddie Taylor, Steve Foster, and Mal Donaghy in defence. We're going to hand straight over to Marv for Marv's quickfire 60 seconds. Marvin.
Okay, Rob, favourite other sport?
Well, it was cricket. But now I've moved to America, and I've been here like 16 years. I go and watch a lot of baseball. I go and watch the New York Yankees. Yeah, I mean, I love it's cricket's now. There's a lot of cricket on television now. You can get cricket channels, but it was harder, and I really like baseball. I've got season tickets, New York Yankees, and I love going to baseball. So.
Yeah, you took me actually. We went one time. That was great, wasn't it? Remember?
Yeah, I do. It was fun. Yeah.
Quick fire, Marv.
Quick fire. Sorry. VAR or no VAR, Rob?
I think VAR now it's in. I look at some of our games, and sometimes you wish you had it when it goes against you. You're just about VAR now. Now you've got used to it.
Okay. Pele or Maradona?
Pele, because when I was a little kid, you had to get that sticker in the 1970 World Cup, and it was really hard to get, and you had to trade a lot of Panini stickers, whatever they were called, for Pele.
Are you collecting them?
I've got the full 70.
No, I meant for the 2022 one.
Yeah, do you know, I've read a piece, Andrew, that if you get unlucky, it costs you £830.
I did see that on the BBC.
Yeah. 830.
Andrew, quick fire, 60 seconds.
Sorry, Marvin.
Sorry, Marvin.
Bundesliga, La Liga, or Serie A for quality? Which one?
Probably La Liga, but I prefer to watch the National League than European football.
Okay. Fish and chips, pie and chips, or pasta?
Pasta out in the first round. Probably pie and chips. I've got a lot of Cornish pasties in my freezer.
Beer, wine, or spirit?
As you know, Marvin, you've been with me at all my significant birthdays. Lager top. Okay.
The majority of people have said all to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, lager top's fine.
Favorite holiday destination?
Oh God. Well, England, because I love going back to England.
Okay.
Probably if I had to pick somewhere, Turks and Caicos.
All right. Okay. Best player you've seen live with your own eyes, not on TV. Best player you've seen.
I've seen everybody, so I go and watch England a bit as well. I don't know. I tell you what, I saw Pirlo play for New York, and that was watching. I mean, even though that was in the twilight of his career, that was like watching 10 kids running around a playground and Pirlo just orchestrating him. The other 10 players were like, they were sort of irrelevant. He was like a conductor. It was pretty amazing.
Best ground you've played or visited, sorry.
Best ground I visited. Ebbsfleet away. I could park my car right by the goal. That was really good. So
On the pitch.
the National League.
One more, Marvin.
Okay, here's one, and I'm interested in this answer. If you could change one rule about the game, what would it be?
I would penalise players much more harshly for play acting and rolling around and diving and all that kind of stuff. It's so prevalent. I mean, less so in the Championship, it's still there. Premier League, it's like, I think, you know, if players do that, I think there's a reason to go to VAR on that and get them off the pitch if they're faking something. I can't stand people faking injury.
Oh, interesting. Interesting. So we're going to keep going with your best 11. So you've gone 3 midfield. How are you doing this? Are you doing one holder, 2 forward, or what are you doing?
No. No, that's what I mean. That's why I think we'd win game 7-4. No, I've gone 2 obvious ones, and one I've sort of squeezed into midfield, kind of. He probably doesn't fit there, but I couldn't leave him out because I love him. So 2 obvious midfielders, one who's probably more an attacking player. And as I said, we'd probably have to be 3 up, you know, quite quickly, probably with this formation.
So start whichever one you like then.
Okay, so we'll go right, centre, left. I mean, obviously a clue, diminutive. That's obvious.
I don't know what that word means.
Oh, sorry, Marvin. It means short.
See?
Yeah,
Okay.
there you go. Yeah. Opposite of you, Marv. No one ever described you as diminutive, Marv. Short and played a ton of games for us, played over 300 games for us.
Play for
Andrew?
a club who you mentioned earlier on.
Haven't mentioned it yet.
No, the club who we also play for, Walsall.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's what we got from.
Diminutive. Lovely
Yeah.
way of putting it. I don't think it's got the same ring, diminutive priest, but it might catch on.
Yeah, he was a great player.
He was.
David
He
Priest.
was.
What a great player. And actually played for us, you know, when it was difficult after the great years in the top league, and was still a great player for us after that point. And really, and you were playing a lot then, Marv. I mean, really in the early 90s, sort of held us together. You know, it was like he was really our best player in the early 90s, especially, you know, when Pleat came back and we had the cup run. You know, I mean, he was incredible player.
Well, he had the kids. It was a little bit like what you said about Pirlo. He had the kids around him running with Oaksy and etc. and Thorpe and Kerry Hughes and Telfer and those boys.
And I know he went to Derby, but I'm surprised, like you said, Robbie, he was, I mean, in my opinion, very underrated. Didn't go to a big club. I mean, I'm sure, I mean, there might have been bids from bigger clubs, because he could have easily got into a bigger club and played and fit in their system.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of players in this team. There's 3 or 4 that you wonder what would have happened if they'd gone to a top team. I mean, you know, and I agree with you, David Priest, definitely that. And he was like a conductor as well. I mean, you're right, Andrew, he was calm in amongst, you know, he could find that pass, you know, it's like, and I think, you know, obviously goal scorers are at a premium these days, but someone who can play that pass is the biggest premium in football now. You know, I mean, obviously goal scorers are always going to be in demand, but someone who can play that, it's hard to find those players. Really hard to find midfield players who can do that, you know. Yeah. So he'd obviously be in the team. So,
were you director of the club when the club decided to name the old family stand, the David Priest stand?
No, I was a vice president then, I think. I mean, I've met his family, but his family had been back at games. And obviously, it's incredibly tragic, you know, that he died so young. But his family, you know, his daughter's been in the director's box and everything. And it's like, no, I mean, it's a great move, though, isn't it? I mean, it's like, him and, you know, he was just too young and you know, very, very popular at the club anyway. So,
but the family is still part of the club, and
and I think there's still a charity involved in them as well, which I think still goes as well. So I think the club are very reverential toward David Priest, very reverential.
Excellent. So, David Priest, who's the next attacking midfielder?
Well, the middle one's obvious. I mean, the middle one's the greatest. Certainly my area, the greatest player ever played for Luton. So that's
not everyone has him in there, Rob. I'd have him in there, but some people have him out on the right. I have him in the middle as well.
Yeah, you got to have him in the middle because look, I mean, I'm very friendly with Ricky. I mean, I saw his first game against Bristol Rovers, I think 76 maybe. But what a player! I mean, there's a player you want to talk about. What would he have been like playing for Real Madrid or never mind an English team? What would he have been like playing for Barcelona or Real Madrid?
Or back then, Marseille or something like
Marseille, that. Even. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, what would? I think Pleaty was pretty good about never playing him when scouts came there. There was that story, I think, was in Marv about he didn't used to, if he heard that someone was coming down to see him, he wouldn't play him or something. It's like, but what a player. And obviously a little bit unlucky with England because of Hoddle, playing at that time. But what a player. And everything, power and strength and vision. But it was, I remember him in one of the first, it might have been the Bristol Rovers game, but he just dribbled the ball for about like 40 yards, and he was 17. It's like he was a kid when he played for us. And then I think Pleat sort of rested him for a while to sort of, and that questionably rested him to stop someone like Man United getting him or something. But what a player, just a great human being. But I mean, the best player I ever saw play. I mean, I'm sure that people who saw the team of the late 50s will say that those England players were great. But from my point of view, the best player that ever played for Luton. I mean, just amazing. Amazing.
Yeah, no, definitely. Would you agree? I was about to say, would you agree, Marv?
No, I agree. Yeah, I mean, there's loads of players who have I've played with at Luton, but like Ricky, stands out like quite a bit. I mean, just like Rob says, he could pass, he could tackle, he could run, he could head. He was a great header of the ball. He used to hang in the air. He used to get up and just hang like.
Yeah.
He had everything.
Yeah.
Do you think, Rob, that I don't think he did, but do you think he may have, in some fans' eyes, tarnished his reputation with the club with what happened when he came back as manager and the way that just didn't work? It for whatever reason, it just didn't work.
Yeah, I know a lot about that era because I was involved in the club. I mean, look, it was an odd era for the club and a bit sort of topsy-turvy with the way the club was run and my view of that, and I sort of know a lot about the detail of it, was that I wish he'd come back as first team coach. That's what I wish he'd come back as, not as manager, because it was a turbulent time from the club, just changed ownership. Lenny had just left, and actually, I wish he'd come back as first team coach to Lenny. That's what I wish had happened.
Yeah,
and I think it would have been great, but it was a complicated time at the club, and I mean, listen, in hindsight, you look back and go, is it fair that he only had like 16 or 17 games? But the fact is, football's brutal, and we weren't playing very well. It's like, and but I, obviously, I wish Ricky had been at the club, as long as Marvin, was around. It's like it would have been great if he'd been involved in the club in coaching for a long, long time. That would have been an ideal scenario. But it was, that's the simplest I can put it. I wish he'd been the first team coach and not manager straight away.
Yeah, no, thank you. So, Ricky, David, Priest, and...
Well, this is squashed in a bit because really he should be a forward, but I had to put him in the team because I loved him.
Have you played Mick Arford in central midfield?
Yeah. I just imagine I'd bump into Mick. Mick would say, what the fuck are you doing putting me in midfield? No, I mean, this is a player who was elegant and could go past people. And again, it's his. I mean, funny enough, we were talking about this because he's back involved with the club, and he scored a lot of goals for the position he played in. He was really a winger. That's all I'll say.
Not many of his head, but Andrew, he's been on Andrew. You know who he is.
Yeah. I didn't know he was that heavily back involved with the club. I know who you're talking about, but I didn't realise he was obviously being about 25,000 k's away. I didn't. I don't really keep up with that. But some David Moss.
Yes.
Yeah. And he was. I mean, he scored. So the statistic, he scored 88 goals in 221 games as a winger.
Whoa, 88.
Yeah, so, which is basically, sort of under 1 in 3 games.
Yeah.
And he scored, obviously took penalties. He was a great penalty taker. So that helped. But even so, that's an amazing statistic for a winger to score, basically 1 in 2.5, every 2.5 games. That's pretty mad. And he was such a graceful player. And really, he was one of the catalysts, I think, for us actually going from being a really, flair team under Pleat to being a really winning team. It's like he made a real difference. I mean, he played a couple of 100 games for us, and again, he's had a really good career after being at Luton. But what a graceful player he was. So I know it's a bit of a squash. So as I said, it's like, unfortunately, with that, someone's going to have to do a bit of, Matt Taylor's going to have to be a little bit more defensive probably in my lineup. But
you're right. I mean, where you sat in the enclosure in that kind of front section of the main stand, you must have, having Mossy and even Ricky Hill as well to a certain extent, going up and down that flanks, it must have just been amazing to watch.
Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, that era with that Pleat team when it was on the way up was magical. It just was. I mean, obviously the culmination was the League Cup, and Ray Harford took us there. But really, the foundation of that was Pleat's team in the late 70s. I mean, it was 10 years earlier. I mean, it was just an exciting team to watch, and we scored a lot of goals. And eventually, we got exactly the blend right to be a proper old top league team. But that team, and going up the league with that team, was really exciting. Really exciting.
So take out cup finals and semis. What's your favourite game you've ever seen Luton play?
Oh, definitely away at Watford. I mean, that was amazing. I even went to see that season. I think, well, maybe it's a season afterwards. I went to see Harlow play at Watford in the Harlow end. That's, it was like, that was because the rival was so mad with Watford. I think actually it was a bit dicey. Actually, I think that we nearly got a good kick in going home from that game. But no, definitely away at Watford because it was Boxing Day. And we had a really, we had a great team. We were a really good team then as well. But that winning score in the last minute, magic, just magic. And remember tumbling down about 25 terraces, when we scored. That was amazing.
Fantastic. And your favourite memory, while we're on memories, your favourite memory of Marvin? What's the best game you've seen Marvin play? Marvin, humble time.
Rob's going to be sarcastic today. There wasn't that many.
No, I'm not going to say that. Not going to say that.
I'm joking.
I did make a reference to Marvin at my birthday a few weeks ago because he came to my birthday and I said he played 465 games. It wasn't all great, it was like, I remember we talked about it a bit. I remember sitting on those seats when he scored against Ipswich. That was great, 4-3, and Marvin tearing away and like everybody trying to catch him. That was really, really great. And actually, the weird thing is, when I got involved in the club the first time, and Marvin played when we won the League Two, Marvin, he made a reference to that earlier. He made a real difference being in the last 15 games of experience and coming on and making sure that we got shored up. And I think that you would, that period of, I think you've been injured a bit, Marv, haven't you? But you were really you were really it really showed your experience coming on and making sure that we got settled and everything. So I remember you vividly from that period. And also because I knew you a bit then as well,
Didn't it start to go really dicey for a little bit? Didn't we get pumped 5-1 by Mansfield or was that a different season?
I think that's it. We did lose.
We got pumped by somebody. I remember seeing the players at Pope's Meadow on a Sunday and they were being absolutely flogged by the man by Kinnear.
No, it's a different era, I think.
Yeah, I think that was the late 40s. That one, Andrew. I think it's like we did lose at Bristol Rovers, and I know that basically Joe slung about 5 players out of the team after that. I won't name any names, but I remember I went to that game. It was down at the Memorial Stadium, and they were much better than us. And then after that, we went on a really good run after.
Marvin will name them.
Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah.
Those players.
I'm just dreading that Marvin was actually in the team. That's what I'm dreading.
Well, you're dreading Marvin was one of those.
I might actually. If it's the game that Rob's on about, I think I was. I think we played a free back, and I think it was myself, Boise, and someone else. And I had a
Russ Perrott. Would it Russ Perrott maybe?
No.
I have to Google that. I think
if it's the game I'm thinking, I had a little bit of a disagreement with Mick after the game in the dressing room, and it was like it got a bit heated actually.
Did it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You back down very fast, though, Marvin.
Marvin, who was the midfield player? Adam somebody played in midfield.
Adam Locke.
Adam Locke. That's right. He played. He got a lot of stick, didn't he? I seem to remember.
Yeah.
That was Adam Locke, Chris Wilmot. That was all that era, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Lockie.
I mean, we won the league. I think that we came second anyway. I mean, it was like, we played well after that, but we were very, very poor that day. Very, very poor. And then you thought perhaps we're in for a really tough season. But as it turned out, I'm pretty sure the transfer deadline wasn't then. So I think we got in 2 or 3 players. Maybe that's when we got in. After that, we got in Valois, Marv, and all that stuff.
Maybe it might have been.
Because the transfer window used to be end or middle of March, didn't it?
Yeah.
You could go all. It was nothing. There was not like it is now, where there's 2 little gaps. But anyway, we have digressed again.
Yeah, but Rob, Andrew, just before you go, I've never actually found this out. Rob, what position did you play then? What was you when you was growing up? Player-wise, where do you play?
Bedgrove Dynamos, I played left back in that. We beat Scouts in the Aylesbury under-12s final, played left back. And then I sort of graduated a bit as I got older to centre half and I could edit, Marv. It wasn't, I could edit. So that was, and then I played football until I was 30 something. I played for a team that played in the sort of London Music Business League on a Sunday mornings. And I played centre half then. So.
Okay.
You'd be fearful of me, Marv, in that era.
And you still get out now, a bit of five-a-side?
No, I did my cruciates. I mean, being a Sunday league player, I did my cruciate. I did my cruciate twice playing football. So I've had about 5 knee operations. So I don't want to get any carried away about that was that good, but the fact is that I did my knee twice, and I've had like cartilage operations. So
if it wouldn't have been for that, you'd have been playing for Luton and Man United by now.
Yeah, that hadn't been for that. Yeah, I was. The Aylesbury under-12s was good enough for me. Andrew, that was good enough.
Excellent. And you said that it was that coach that took you to your first Luton game. Your first manager.
He was a young lad. He was a great coach as well. But he was a young guy. He wasn't like an older guy. He was probably in his 20s, and I think he took about 8 or 9 of us. And one of my best friends, who I still go to the games with now, who I've known since I was 4, we all went at the same time in 1973. All of us. It was, I think there was like 7. In fact, I was on the phone to 2 of them on my birthday, which was we lost. I mean, Marvin came around and watched the game when we lost at home to. Preston, right?
Preston.
Yeah, Preston.
Yeah.
We lost over to Preston a couple of weeks ago, and I phoned them, and 2 of them were on their way home from the game, and they were asking what game we went to the day before the Aylesbury under-12s final, and I remember it. How sad is that? We beat Preston 4-2, and we stood in the Kenilworth Road in 1973 promotion season. We beat Preston 4-2, and I believe, just to show what a train spotter I am, that I think Bobby Charlton was the manager of Preston that day.
Ooh.
Yeah, good train spotting. And they're laughing at me, going, "How on earth do you remember that?" And I goes, "I don't remember anything about most of the last 20 years, but I remember 1973 like it was yesterday." So
if he had taken you to Arsenal, then Arsenal would have been your team, Rob. Then is that?
Yeah, or God forbid he'd been a Watford fan. I mean, because it's like Aylesbury's in between Watford, Oxford, and Luton. Really, could have been. Obviously, I'd have preferred to support Oxford and Watford, but no, it was. He just took us to games. We went on a Keith's coach from Aylesbury bus station for 27p. So So bargain, you know.
Love
So there was a lot of us went, and the goalkeeper in that game, and my mate John and another guy Alan, yeah, they were at the Preston game 3 weeks ago. So
fantastic. So up front, we got 3 people up front.
Well, the 2 are obvious, and one probably reasonably obvious. Pretty much the same era, kind of. I mean, again, formation-wise, I'm struggling in terms of putting this on a board in the dressing room, Andrew. I mean, look, people are going to be saying, "Is that a formation, or is that just a bunch of really great players?" But
are you walking in Ted Lasso style?
I'm walking in Ted Lasso style. Exactly. Exactly. So the first one. I mean, an easy tip. What's an easy tip? Another Charlton player came from Charlton, like Paul Elliott.
Did he go to Liverpool? Did he play for Liverpool?
He did.
Tottenham?
Yeah.
Mr. Paul Walsh.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, his first couple of games for us were, you know, I mean, he was unbelievable. I mean, I think he scored, he maybe scored a hat-trick, or maybe it was 2 against Swansea, when that was the season when we just stayed up, you know, and he was unbelievable. And he was a kid. I mean, I think he was like, wasn't he 19, Marv, or something? He was a kid. 19,
you know, because we spoke about it when he was like in the England squad, Rob, at 19, like in the full England squad. Like,
yeah, he was unbelievable. I mean, he had pace. He had you couldn't get the ball off him. He was unbelievable player. I mean, again, I looked it up. He played 80 games for us and 25 goals. So he didn't play that long. He basically played, I guess 2 seasons, really. 2 seasons a bit. But
was you surprised though, Rob, that Charlton let him go? How good he was for such a young.
I think 150 grand, Marv. You know, I mean, you know, and we got Paul Elliott from Charlton as well, because I think Charlton was a great. I mean, Nico came from that area, didn't he, as well, from Charlton, and so did you know, the John Terry was that south, you know, that South area, and obviously they produced great footballers, because he was a oh God, what I mean, everybody always thinks, and I think he talks about it a lot, because obviously he's a commentator now. He should have played. I mean, he should have been better. I mean, he should have done. You know, he should have been one of the best players England's ever had.
Right.
But he was, what a player. I mean, he was great for us. So,
Paul Walsh.
Yeah.
So next to Paul Walsh.
I mean, that's easy. I mean, I couldn't leave him out. I mean, I love him as a human being.
You literally couldn't leave him out because you're worried about going to the Luton game?
I literally, that's one of the reasons I couldn't leave him out, because he just give me that look. He wouldn't actually say anything. He'd just look at me. He'd get his glasses and look at me like that. But again, I mean, he's one of my favourite people in the world, and obviously he's a legend. But you know, you've got to have him as a centre forward. You've got to have him as a centre forward. So
yeah, definitely. Did he go up in your eyes after the dodgy goal he scored to keep us up?
Against Derby.
Everyone says
that.
No, I said, did he go up? He admitted he did it on purpose.
When did he admit? I've never heard this.
I've read it somewhere.
See, you've read it. You've not heard it come through the big man's lips, have you?
Okay.
I tell you what, I do like him even more than that for that. Well, that's amazing. But when loads of Watford players are doing that daft, they do that fly thing and they're upside down.
And he stamps
on them. They're just absolutely brilliant. You know, it's like just brilliant. I mean, listen, he is everything you could ever possibly hope for from a human being, and funny and knows his. I mean, obviously, all of us on this podcast and everybody who's listening, I'm sure there's not any single person who doesn't love Mick. You know, it's like, and never mind what a great human being he is. He was an incredible forward. What a player!
Technically as well.
What a touch! Yeah. Technically, I mean, I'm sure you saw it every day, Mub. What a touch as well. Technically great. No, for a big player with all that strength and power, technically really good as well. You know, so
yeah,
really,
I'm
really good.
I'm going to throw a difficult question. I'm going to throw a difficult question to you, Marv. Who was the hardest player, Luton player, you ever had to defend against in training?
Oh, I mean, you're better off asking them that question, because I used to play as a striker. I used to attack all the time. I didn't. And I'm
The goal
being
tally
really-
doesn't say that, Marv. The goal tally doesn't say that. Dan Potts has got more goals than you scored, Marv.
You looked that up this morning, didn't you?
Has he really?
No.
Has he got
I'm
11
not
then?
listening to that, Andrew. How many goals did you score for Luton?
10.
10. You played
Double
450 games.
But Rob, I mean, listen, I was employed to stop anything. That's
You just said you were
10
good going
bonuses.
forward.
That's 10 bonuses. I mean, that was out of my job description, scoring them goals. But like, I enjoyed it. I loved to attack it. No, I mean, back to Andrew's question. I mean, if we were playing,
He scored 10 goals, by the way. I
see?
just looked it up.
Yeah,
Dan
if
Potts.
we were-
No, Dan Potts.
So he's level with
Oh,
Marv.
did he's level with me? See, Rob,
He's level with you,
but he's still
Marv,
playing
yeah.
though, isn't he?
In
He's still got
170,
time.
in 170
In
games.
170 games, Marv, not 460.
I know, but like, I'm sure, Rob, if he gets to 20 goals, let's say he gets to 20 goals, right? I'm sure he's hoping that he's going to play more than 400 odd games. He might only play 300 games. Who knows? I'll take the games, Rob, above the goals.
That's true. Look at your goals ratio, Marv. You never went up for corners. That's what it looks like for me. So.
Does it?
Sorry, Mark.
But,
I was asking about who, because we're talking about Mick Harford here. So, was Mick the toughest player you trained against?
No, I was going to say, in like when you used to, what do you call it, like play reserves versus first team, and obviously I'm growing up and I'm playing against the first team. Yes, Mick would be like, but Mick wouldn't like play like he was playing in like on a weekend. So it still leave it a little bit on you, sort of thing, as we used to say. But he wouldn't be like going hell for leather in the game. So Mick would definitely be one of those ones who, if the ball's in the air, you'd be like going up like with like a little bit like Marvin's ball, sort of like turning away, sort of thing. But I mean, Mick, yeah,
Mick, not Howie then.
Howie was like, I mean, Howie you can have a little bit of Howie and he'd give as good as he'd get. You know, Howie, we wouldn't. No, Mick. You mentioned Mick, and I'm sure like the likes of Martin Keown, who's a tough player. He would, those sort of defenders we didn't mention. Mick's probably one of the toughest players they've played against.
Yeah,
he gets mentioned on commentaries quite a lot by players. Lee Dixon was on commentary here, and he said he made some reference in an Arsenal game, and then about 5 minutes later, Mick Harford just walloped him. It's like it's. I mean, literally, it's funny. Lee Dixon was funny talking about him. And I think they asked him a sort of similar question. He said, "No, I made a mistake of being a bit cocky in a game which Mick Harford was playing in, which was funny, really funny."
So Paul Walsh, Mick Harford. And
sorry, just to mention on, if I was allowed a bench, I would have Howie as the backup. I loved watching Howie. He was amazing for us, and he was an old-fashioned centre forward as well. But the other forward is obvious too. Sorry, I'm obvious, but hopefully people understand why. The other forward who played 400 odd games for us as well. So
Paul Pescasolido.
That's who it is. Paul, listen, you're not going to get me under Andrew players who didn't play quite as well for us. And my worst 11, I wouldn't want to do that podcast.
Did he even play a game?
Yes, he did.
Did he?
He did.
I don't think he played a full game.
Maybe not a full game. I mean, he literally, I don't think he did.
He got injured after about 3 seconds.
That's your favourite era of the club, Marvin, the Blackwell era. That's your favourite era, isn't it? That era. That's like, you love that era. Big happy times, right? Happy times in the Cleveland Blackwell era.
Happy times, Rob.
No, I probably, I mean, actually, Andrew, we had a few players like that in that squad who didn't play very much.
I'm trying to think who else.
Yeah, there was that was when he brought in a lot of play. What he did is he brought in a lot of old pros, didn't he? That's what he did, and they.
Who else did he bring in? Oh, Chris Perry was good.
Chris Perry was right. There was someone else as well. There was a fullback he brought in from.
Oh, Kimball.
Or was that Joe brought in Kimball?
Maybe Joe brought in Alan.
Alan Kimball was good.
Yeah, he didn't play very. There was someone else who didn't play very much in that same team. I can't remember who it was. Anyway, well, it's best forget the Blackwell era, hey Marvin. Let's move on. Move on swiftly.
So we've gone Bruno Steen.
We have, yeah. And again, playing remember seeing his first games, and I mean, I think there was a bit of a concern at the beginning, right, in the first 10 games, that Brian might be a bit lightweight, because obviously he was, there wasn't, it was like a feather a little bit. But then after about 10 games, he settled in and he was phenomenal. And, obviously he had a great partnership with Mick, but also I remember him playing with Bob Hatton, and he was great with Bob Hatton as well, when he first started playing, like 76, I guess, 77. But I mean, he was great with that. And he was, what a player he was. And again, another player like Ricky that you wonder, I mean, he played in our most successful team, of the last 40, 50 years. But, he played for England, but was he good enough to play again at a top European level? Because he had everything. He had pace and he had skill, and, he could ghost past people. And he was, what a player he was. And, again, I know Brian from his time at the club afterwards, and, a humble guy, and look at like Marvin said about Steve Foster, the humility of some of these players is unbelievable, in my opinion. Same with Mick, Ricky, that they were humble people. It's like, because the club.
Looking at that team, Rob, that's a top team you've picked there. I mean, that if we put these teams to go out and play against other Luton teams, that's a good. I mean, more than a good team. That's a top Luton team you picked.
Yeah, I mean, and also, played a ton of games for us. I mean, Steenie over 400, Ricky over 400, Precy over 300. I mean, these players. The reason I picked these players also is because you saw them a lot. I mean, I saw, Brian, I saw for 15 years playing for us, or whatever it was, and it was like he was part of the fabric of your life, because you saw him play every week for 15 years, which is,
they're ballers. The whole team's ballers. They really are.
Yeah.
Which is what Luton are.
Yeah, and personality wise, I mean, that team, as Ricky knows, as Marvin knows, because he was around them. It's like, what more would you want to learn from Ricky or Brian Steen, or, like Marvin said, Steve Foster? It's like incredible, really. So I mean, even though I like that, there are, we've got some players at the moment who are fantastic, and I've been lucky enough to see some of these players develop over close hand at Luton. That team, to my mind, sort of picks itself, with possibly the exception of the left back, where there was a couple of choices, but I went with Matty Taylor. But the rest of the team, if I'm allowed one, can I have a sub as well? Because in the old days, we didn't have one sub. The sub would be that we'd be 7-3 up in halfway through the second half. I'd bring Brian Horton on just to make it.
Brian Horton.
Yeah.
You're talking about stairs. I'm surprised you were not worried about the stare from him, from not picking him.
Yeah.
You spoke about that. Who you spoke about it, Marv, and who else you spoke about it? The knobby stare.
Rob Johnson. Rob Johnson. Yes. He said, like, I mean, he'd make a mistake and he'd just feel them staring at him with the glare, and then the game will still be going on for 2 minutes, and he'll still feel him looking at them, staring at him still after like 2 or 3 minutes of the mistake he just made. So
fantastic.
But
when you get those players, they are. I mean, like Alan McCormack was a bit like that. I think quite similar and everything. You wouldn't want Alan McCormack following you around the pitch. It's like, same thing. It's like that. And actually, Nico was a bit like that too.
Yes.
Like, so that stuff is, you want one of those players. So maybe if we were, maybe Brian would play, some of the games, but that team is pretty hard to beat. And as I said, it's I think actually the second 11 would be much harder to pick, much harder to pick, because then you've got really good at, you've got Mitchell Thomas, who when he started playing for Luton was amazing. This Marvin knows, Emerson Boyce, who was a great athlete, and Thorpe and
Pembridge,
Scotty Oakes,
Kerry Hughes, who
Roy Wegley, Lars Elstrom.
I've got Roy Wegley, and one for the previous era, because my first era, as I said, was 73, 74. I loved Peter Anderson, who was a goal scoring midfield player. who was like a number 4, but really was a great attacking midfield player. I scored lots of goals in my first season. So the second 11, I'd really struggle to get 11 against 11 if it was a training pitch. But
what about the
11?
What about the Futures? Were they? Did you see them?
I've got them, Marvin. I was being generous to you because I put you in as a backup for Mal, but I also have Paul Futcher. You know, so
I heard he was. I heard. I mean, I did. I mean, I heard
phenomenal.
He was an unbelievable player.
He was phenomenal. I mean, that's I guess before your time, Andrew. He was like, we got him, and he was like, he looked like he was going to be Bobby Moore, and then I think probably maybe he went to the wrong club at the time because he went to Man City. And I don't know at the time, but the fact is he was incredible. And his brother was a pretty good forward as well, Ron Futcher. But Paul Futcher was like like a proper Bobby Moore, elegant centre-back, you know. So yeah, I had him written down as well. But yeah, I think the second 11 would be harder to pick than the first 11.
But what about the manager then? What manager are you picking then to lead this?
Oh God, you had to get that in there, Martin. You had to make it controversial right at the end. Okay, so this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to hedge my bets. Pleaty's got to be the manager because that's Pleaty's team principally. Got to be the manager, and I'll have Nathan as first team coach. Is that right?
Okay.
How smooth? How ambassador is
it? Yeah, because you knew I was going to ask the question. That's why he's You had your answer.
That's Pleaty's team, but obviously, you know, I love what Nathan's doing at the club, and you know, to get us where we are, along with, you know, with Mick being in that interim period as well. I mean, it's like, you know, this is incredibly exciting time for the club. It's just exciting. It's exciting to come back a long way, and you know, and I think touch wood, you know, we're at the very least an established championship team now, and I think that's down to Nathan.
Just explain a bit about what you do, because a lot of the fans obviously know you as a director. What's the major part, Luton fans, just so they know about what you do in your role as a Luton director?
I've worked for the same company 37 years now, Andrew, you know, so, you know, it's all, you know, I grew up in a town which had music as part of the culture of the town with Aylesbury Friars, and I saw every great artist of that era play at Friars, and I worked there as a junior security, and a lot of people from Aylesbury went into the music business, you know, and it's like, and it's not coincidental, it's because of that club, and because the guy who ran it, Dave Stopps, had a record store in town and had a club that, so I had the best education, never mind O levels and all that. I had the best education. I had a musical education because of living in Aylesbury, and so that's what I wanted to do. You know, it was like, you know, Marvin was lucky to live out his dreams and be a professional football player. You know, it's like I think from the age of 14, I wanted to work with, you know, bands and work with music, and just been very lucky to do that. And how I got here is, you know, a series of accidents and whatever, you know, kind of because it was really my passion for music that was prevalent when I left school and went to college, and then started literally straight after college at the company I'm at now, you know. So I think that I don't ever think it's anything but a privilege to, you know, be like someone working with great sports people every day. I work with great musicians every day, and it's a massive privilege. I don't ever underestimate that fact, and I've got to where I am by hopefully by respecting that privilege, you know.
Yeah, and your role at Luton, is that something that what's your role in Luton in terms of the director role there? Because obviously you're in the States, so it can't be as hands-on as other directors.
No, but it's I mean, you know, Gary does a very good job at making it close knit, you know, and that they, you know, the other directors have been there a while before. I mean, I was a director briefly in the early 2000s, and then, you know, I kind of stopped because it wasn't right for me to be involved at that time. And then
you didn't want to build a Grand Prix track over the top of the motorway.
That's exactly right. When John Gurney phoned me, I thought that was time to leave, you know. But you know, these directors are the other guys, you know, formed 2020 and really deserve all the credit because they got us out when we were in when we were in that difficult period of post the points deductions, and then they asked me to. I was a vice president for a long time. I'm sort of friendly with all of them. We're a very close-knit group. Every one of them, you know, I think it's quite working class and blue collar. Everyone's a proper supporter. There's not anybody who isn't really. And it's a close-knit group, and we're all passionate Luton fans, and no one really tries to be, you know, sort of overpowering about control. We trust Nathan, we trust Gary, obviously. And as I said, I think it's a close-knit bunch of people, you know, and it's honestly, you know, it's tough when you lose, but at the moment, for the most part, the last 5 years, it's been an utter joy to be involved. It's just fantastic, you know. And you know, it's complicated to some degree because, as everyone knows, we haven't got the finances and the capability with only 10,000 people being in the ground every week to do some of the things. But in some ways it doesn't matter, because I think that what we've crafted is we found a manager and a setup with, you know, with Nathan and Mick and then Paul Hart and now Chris Cohen and Alan. But we found a setup that suits who we are, you know. Yeah. and we get the best out of people, and I think that's credit to Nathan and Gary and David Wilkinson and the rest of the board who were there before me, because you know, there's a culture at the club. There genuinely is a culture at the club, and Marvin's been through probably several cultures, and some cultures have been brilliant and some not so great. And this is a really good culture. I'm very proud of how we are principled, and we are sort of true to our, what the club's roots are, and the town and the community. And I'm very proud of what, also not just what we do on the field, but what we represent as a club, because there's some clubs that I've been to in the last few years, and you know, they don't have that attitude and that culture. And I think what we have is very unique. I really, really believe that. I'm not just saying that because I'm involved. I think the fans feel that too, you know.
No, I definitely agree. Definitely agree.
The final question then. Oh, we'll go to Andrew's got another one. Rob, I'm looking forward to it. I mean, the Derby. I mean, once the ones that they got back into the league, I'm thinking. I mean, that was the first, the two games I was looking for, because I mean, when are they again? I forgot now.
Yeah, well, the Watford away is towards the end of October. I mean, it's weird because we played Watford away during the pandemic period, and there was no one there, and it was a bit of a damp squib, the game. I don't think it'll be like that this time. No. And I actually went to the Luton home game because directors could go to those games, which was obviously mad. There was, I mean, 10 of us in the stadium, and it was quite, when we beat Watford at home, it wasn't anywhere near as good as if everybody'd been in there, but it was still pretty good.
Did you give Andre Gray some abuse?
Yeah, I did. It's great actually, because a Watford player came off, and I really was like, because he kicked a water cooler, and he was really annoyed, and I was like waving at him, and he was getting more annoyed, and I thought he was going to come up from because the dugout was in the terraces. I thought he was going to come up from the terraces into the director's box because he was so annoyed. And obviously, yeah, you're right, because I like Andre Gray, obviously, you know, and I've met Andre a few times and I like him, but I didn't like that bad nonsense he did, and it was great when it was disallowed. So I was actually at that game. But no, I'll be back for the Watford home game. You know,
April Fool's Day.
April Fool's Day, that's right. It's going to be amazing.
Well, I want to say thank you so much on behalf of myself and Marv for coming on.
Yes, thank you, Rob.
Fantastic to hear your Luton team, your journey, and your passion and love for the club. So that was Rob Stringer's My Best 11.